Hello, welcome to I Protest. It's Donald Jeffries here with you, coming to you more than fashionably late. Sorry I'm so late today. We had a series of unfortunate events and complications. Even gas canceled, and we had trouble getting the link out. And I don't know. Apparently, people weren't waiting with bated breath because I don't see anybody in the YouTube chat. Okay, okay. Brian Taylor showed up. I don't see Deborah Wheeler and all the people that are normally here early. So hopefully we'll have people listening because I don't have a guest. It's going to be an abridged version. I'm probably going to only go for an hour or so, unless a lot of you come in here and make it really interesting. Because I have another interview. I'm going to be on the Nature Boy show at 8 tonight, so people that are interested can watch that as well. I'm going to go over to Rumble here and see if I can see if anybody's watching there, so I can access both chats. So again, forgive me for being so late, and I hope that my friend Vince Agnelli had already asked if there was a show, and I told him, yeah, we're coming on soon, so hopefully Vince will show up. So at least one person was waiting. Okay, here we are. And okay, I don't know why I don't see it in Rumble. Okay. I thought all I had to do is go to this channel. Oh, well, sorry, guys. So if you're in the Rumble, it's YouTube, because I don't know how to, let me just text Tony here. Um, okay. So anyhow, hopefully some more people. Good to see you, Brian. You're holding on the chat all by yourself. Um, and okay, Brian says, "Are you familiar with Michael Hoffman?" I am. I'm trying to get Michael Hoffman on the show. Michael Hoffman's been around for a long time. Very interesting guy. I have a lot of respect for him, but you can't tell that much. But I can tell usually a little bit about people from the emails or whatever. And I don't know. There was, it wasn't, I asked him to be on the show, and it wasn't a simple matter of yes or anything like that. It was it seemed like a whole lot of ropes to go through. Have I read his books or anything like that? And that kind of thing is like, okay, I don't know. So I probably won't ask him again. I like him, but I am familiar with him. I'm not sure what he was saying about James Stevens Angleton, but maybe he's talking about the files that were released, and his name pops up constantly in the redacted things. Okay, he's going to put it great. Just in case. I know hopefully somebody's over in Rumble. Anyway, but for some reason, the people that listen to this, they go to the Rumble for AU, for American Unplugged, but they don't go to Rumble much for this show, and I don't really know why. So let's see. I'm a little offended. Okay, and sure enough, there's okay, Birdhouse Blues is there. Good to see you, Birdhouse. Very kind person. Birdhouse Blues is the guy. If you go to my Twitter, and I also post on Facebook as well. It made this. My birthday was a few days ago, August 19th, and thanks everybody for. I got a lot of great birthday wishes from people, and Birdhouse Blues created this, I guess, with AI or sort of whatever you do, but he created this really cool avatar with me and JFK, walking, serving me my birthday cake. That was so cool. So one of the coolest things anybody's ever done for me. So I very, very much appreciate that. And I was sharing it all around, and everybody seemed to be impressed with it as well. It was very, very cool. Okay, so if you're listening, I'd like to see you in the Rumble chat. Obviously, I'd like to see you in the YouTube chat. And I mean, I would say, I guess people got tired of waiting for me because the show ended up being almost a half an hour late, but that doesn't explain where the comments were, because typically this, people there's a handful of you guys that are in the chat room before the show starts every week, and I don't know where everybody is. So maybe everybody's busy or something. But um, and that's the main reason I decided to do the show, because I thought there'd be a lot of you waiting. And again, I've had one of the most frustrating things about doing these podcasts and trying to have guests is when people cancel on you at the last minute. Today, and the guest today has canceled 3 times, so 3 strikes you're out. Sorry. She may be interesting, I don't know, but I can't have that, especially when it's always at the last minute. So, there was, nothing I could do, and then, of course, we had the glitch that, we didn't get the link available till about a half hour later. So at any rate, so I don't know, the mystery of the missing people in chat. Where are the people that are usually here? Good to see Brian Taylor. Brian says, Guard Goldsmith was our friend, was talking about the Fowler Private Theater case. You've written about that, right? Oh, yes, sir, I have. Well, I wonder what if Guard knows the whole story about it. Yeah, when I was researching my book, Crimes and Cover-Ups in American Politics, 1776, 1963, um, I discovered, and I learned so much through the research helping me of Peter C. Koch and Chris Graves. But that book I pretty much researched by myself, because it was still easy to do it on the internet. And I discovered myself I was looking up the story about the World War I anti-war protesters like Eugene Debs, a great socialist, and other people. And I found out that there was the Eugene Debs and the other protesters took it to the appeal to the Supreme Court. And I had no idea that's where the Fire and Credit Theater comment came from. But Oliver Wendell Holmes, great liberal Supreme Court justice, still an iconic figure on the left, and of course, a strong supporter of World War I, like every other liberal was. Most nonsensical war we've ever had. There's Vince Agnelli. Vince, well, you're the one person that was waiting for I protest today, so we aim to keep people happy. So good to see you, my friend. But Oliver Wendell Holmes, he invented that, coined that phrase. Said you can't yell fire at a crowded theater, and it was to justify Woodrow Wilson locking up, imprisoning anti-war protesters. So again, as I said, what does that say about? I mean, if that doesn't say it all, because basically, however you look at it, protesting a war is not yelling fire in a crowded theater. So very, very dangerous precedent. I don't know if Guard, was talking about it in that respect, but that's where it comes from. So, oh, good, we got some people over in Rumble. Good to see people here. Thanks, Birdhouse Blues acknowledging that was just wonderful, Birdhouse. What a great montage you created. Denver Attaway, good to see you here. Ryan Bradley, good to see you. CBC is asking what to know if I get kicked off YouTube again. Yeah, I when I get angry, I call it that myself. No, I'm on YouTube as well. Not yet, and that doesn't. The only thing that happens is I talk about the one subject, and if I don't do that, usually they let me talk about pretty much everything else. Okay, good to see some people over here. Dan Renault, he says some people put to death regarding World War I. Suppose comment is like, I had to check on that and see, but it's they certainly went after what they called anarchists in those days. And anarchists, if you look at the political, and there's Chris Bucket, good to see you. Yes, very late start. I explained that I had a guest cancellation, and then we had a glitch with the link, the streaming link. So anyway, better late than never. And to make it up, just as I used to joke all the time on during my illustrious working career, I used to always joke, "Hey, look, okay, I'm late, but I'll make up for it by leaving early." So I tend to do that today. I'm probably gonna have to check out literally, simply because I have an interview. I'm going to be on Nature Boys podcast at 8 o'clock. Um, so I want to get out a little bit so I can do a few things, including wolfing down dinner in between. So yeah, I'm not sure whether they put them to death, but certainly if you look at American Memory Hall, we have a lot, thanks mainly to Peter, getting a lot of that material for me, Peter Seacosh. But the World War II protesters were treated horribly, and a lot more of them were locked up. than I had imagined. And so I'm not sure what happened, but it had so many bad things that happened during that time period. Yeah, again, these were people that the early so-called communists, but there was a mix-up. They kind of they mixed up communists with anarchists, which makes no sense because anarchy, if you look at the political scale, uh, communist at the far left of the scale, and anarchist is at the far right because anarchists are not both supposed to believe in any government. Communists are supposed to believe in total government. So why they mix them up, I don't know. Anarchists would theoretically be on the far right, but and that's what the case of Sacco and Vanzetti, which I wrote about in Crimes and Cover-ups, and it covered that. And I think they were definitely the victims of the anti-anarchist prejudice, anti-Italian prejudice, and they were not guilty at all. And they were executed. They're very eloquent when they talked about being executed. It's a shame, just one of many crimes our government has committed. But that book, I think Naomi Wolf was flabbergasted when she first because I mean I managed to come to the defense of both Joe McCarthy and the Rosenbergs in that book. I think Joe McCarthy was a great American hero, and I think the Rosenbergs were treated unfairly. They certainly should have been executed. As I pointed out, a lot of they had other spies at the same time that were guilty of the exact same thing and had minimal sentences. So why they're and maybe it had a lot to do with the Rosenberg name. Maybe somebody was trying to make a point or something. I don't know. Um, okay, that's Birdhouse. That's thank you for leaving the link there. That's what it is. The third rail. I call it Nature Boy. That's his podcast. Thank you for putting that link there. Denver Attaway says the Palmer. Yeah, you might be because the Palmer raids were, and that's where J. Edgar Hoover first came to prominence. A young J. Edgar Hoover that overdid it. And the Palmer was Ray Palmer was the not his first name, but that was the Attorney General at the time, and just overkill. I mean, they just what you kind of see with the way they treat the far right now. I mean, they just raided them, arrested a bunch of them. It was for their beliefs, and it was ironic because at the same time they were doing that, our government, especially the corporate world, was lending tacit support. And you can see it, a lot of that in American Memory Hole. They basically paid for the Bolshevik Revolution, and Anthony Sutton wrote a book about that, Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. It's documented, well documented. So I'm not sure why they hated American communists because they're supporting the ones in Russia. Kennington Powers, Sharp shirt. This is a new shirt. My wife got me a bunch of new shirts, so I'm showing that off. Um, Kennefin's talking about Billy Ray's TDS. Well, I don't think TDS gets much better. So I think that the only thing that will cure TDS and the Trump enablement syndrome, whatever I call the people that are absolutely have hope with Trump, is Trump leaving politics. I'm not sure it'll even happen then, but we'll see what happens then. Um, Yeah, Brian Taylor says, yeah, Mikhail Bakunin actually was a socialist communist. And Bakunin created Satan as his first liberator, which is yeah, and that's right. So I don't understand why they were even called anarchists because they really weren't. Because if they have communistic beliefs, that would be the exact opposite of anarchists. But I think Sacco and Vanzetti were the real deal. Um, Chris Bucket says Bakunin was a weirdo. Yeah, I mean I've read a little bit about him. Birdhouse Blues, new shirts rack. Yeah. Well, it's been a long time since I bought a shirt for myself. So, and if you see my shirts, they're either my wife or my sister-in-law used to buy me some, and or my daughter. My daughter buys me a lot of shirts too. So obviously, I don't know what I'm doing, but so I haven't shopped for clothing for a long time. The only thing I had with shirts is I always tucked them out back when nobody else was doing it. Now everybody's doing it. Vince Agnelli's Popeye's chicken strips. Right on. Cool. For some reason. I assume that's what he's eating. I don't know. But at any rate, so we have what do we have going on? I've been watching and Chris Buchan is in the chat. He'd be interesting to get his take on this. But there's I wrote an article about American Free Press touching on this. I turned it in Sunday, but it should be in the next issue. But about the right, a lot of these extreme right wing people on YouTube now, which I'm sure, there are going to be people in this audience and people out there that think that they're all disinfo agents, and maybe they are. I'm sure. But you have Nick Fuentes, who is really getting more and more attention. Of course, I'm curious about him because he kinda came out of nowhere, and his background appears to be working class, it says but, and then you have, of course, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and they're kind of fighting with each other, and, basically the alt-right, Dave Smith, these people are arguing with, Fuentes. But, of course, Fuentes has a huge audience himself, so but I'm amazed at the things they're talking about there because, they're really opening up the parameters of discourse because you're more and more talk about Jewish, not just Zionism, but Jewish disproportionate power and the impact and the power they have in the United States. It's incredible, and that just never, used to. It just not. It was not allowed, and especially on the right. The right, and some of the people on the right still you don't, allow it in terms of. They want to hold. Get Charlie Kirk tapes, things like that. Of course, Charlie Kirk hates uh, Nick Fuentes as well. So I don't know what you guys think of him. I don't know what to think of Fuentes myself, but I mean, Fuentes has some. But I just if you watch this week, and I like Jason Whitlock a lot, but he's got a he loves to get in arguments. He used to have a special channel that he called Beefs about all his beefs that he'd have with everybody, pretty much everybody. Um, but anyhow, no, I don't think we can get you the link, Chris and Tom. We've had trouble with getting links to people today, but and this is going to be an abbreviated show anyhow. But anyhow, Whitlock clearly is an argumentative guy. And he likes rustling feathers, and he likes to be contrarian. So it was kind of natural. So he's really going after Nick Fuentes, and he's being kind of nasty about it. I mean, to be honest with you, and so Fuentes is firing right back at him and, call him fat, which, it's the first thing you're gonna do is look at somebody like him. That's be the first word out of the mouth when you're arguing. But he had the other day, Whitlock had this guy come on, I forget his name, but I've never heard of him, but he was somebody, I don't even know what his claim to fame is, but he wrote something that was considered anti-Semitic, and Nick Fuentes was the only one who came to his defense. So he should have liked the guy, right? So then he apparently he was accepted into the Grapers. That's the I don't really understand what the Grapers means, but that's apparently Nick Fuentes' crowd, and he's got almost a cult of followers. But this guy, when he started going in the chats and stuff, supposedly he said these guys are all obsessed with pedophilia. This is what everybody does now. They attack their well, you're a pedophile. And that this is all they talked about, and how much they hated women. Well, that I can believe. I mean, a lot of these guys hate women now. This is it's misogyny if such a thing exists. But I just was shocked that Whitlock had this guy on because none of it was just hearsay, every bit of it. And this is terribly damaging. And Tucker Carlson, when he was talking about it, he was fighting back, saying that this weird little gay kid that lives in his parents' basement. And what? Why? What? I mean, so many people say he's gay. Yeah, he claims he hasn't had sex, and they said the same thing about Tim Tebow. I guess it's impossible to believe that. I'm not saying maybe he's a fraud. I don't know, but is it impossible to believe that a young guy is just saying I'm going to be celibate, and that makes them gay? I don't know. Maybe he is, but I don't think there's any proof that they keep throwing that out there. Chris Bucket says a lot of people just start says great. I hate Charlie Kirk. Like Fuente says in the Jews, but I've heard it from a reliable source that Nick wants to turn the U.S. into a Catholic fascist dictatorship. Well, that could be possible, and that's the problem. A lot of these people, somebody like him, I can see him liking General Francisco Franco or something, and like in a Catholic dictatorship in Spain. He has the Fuentes name. He's like 1/8 Spanish or something, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think he's interesting, but I don't like. All the world's a stage, so it's stupid for them to go after Nick because Nick will hold. He definitely doesn't hold back. And so again, whatever I have, I always am skeptical of people that there's somebody behind them, and that includes anything like this. What's this guy's name? Uh, Carroll. Is it Ian Carroll? Is Carroll? Ian Carroll, somebody on the channel now. Carroll's the last name. I think it's Ian Carroll, but he's come out of nowhere. And, I agree with almost everything he says. He sounds great, but he says, like, I wasn't awake until like 5 years ago or so. I was like, well, so how do you have this audience? It's- that's what gets me. I'm looking at the audience and I'm grateful for every one of you that's watching and in the chat room and everything. But I don't know how these people get these kind of audiences. It doesn't make any sense to me. I can't escape the suspicion that there's something or someone is behind them. Brian Taylor says Nick Fuentes has said loving and having a wife is gay. Yeah, but he also says he wants to have kids. I know. I don't know. He's definitely a weird guy. Um, yeah, that's right. Chris Buggins, if he was his age, he'd have more kids. And yeah, yeah, I don't. Tate's put together, and Andrew Tate's another one. We could talk about him, and I wrote about him on Substack. He says a lot of the right stuff. But he's also had some stuff on video that are really disturbing comments about women, keeping him in the line and basically almost like saying they should be beaten and raped and that kind of thing. Um, Jennifer says the views and subs are purchased. You can buy. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. I don't know. I guess I just don't want to do that. I mean, it's nothing organic. I don't because what I found again, and what I know, I've talked to you guys about this before in terms of trying to get people to rate my books on Amazon because the more you have, they're the exact opposite of what I've always been. I hate bandwagon fans. I hate people that jump on back in the day rooted for the Yankees or something. But there's so many people like that. If they see something is popular, then they'll support it. I don't understand. Like, let's say something's on Facebook, and if it has 1,500 likes or something, they're going to give it 1,501. But if something has no likes, they're not going to give it the first one. I don't understand. The same thing with like on Twitter. If somebody has a lot of followers, oh, I've got to follow it. But if they don't, they have no. I don't get that. I'm the exact opposite of that. I don't understand it. But so there's some envy there. There's definitely some envy there because I know how hard I try to work to develop a following, and I slowly but surely, it's like the tortoise and the hare. I'm making progress on Substack, but that's the only place I'm really making much progress. I don't know if it's just because of my writing or something, but it's frustrating to see these people come out, and I know some of them definitely buy. I know they can buy reviews on Amazon. They could buy copies of their books. If I had a lot of money, I could buy 10,000 copies of my book, and it would probably make it go to the New York Times bestseller list. But I don't have the money to do that. Um, Brian Taylor says he's heard people say Nick is part of an Opus Dei, which I've heard is some kind of clandestine group. Yeah, there's a lot of people that talk about Opus Dei, or I don't understand that. I don't. I'm a Catholic, and I don't really understand what it's about. But they claim it's a shadowy thing. Um, Chris had dinner with Dave Guerrero the other night, and we were talking about how most of these guys are full of shit. He knows he platforms many of them. Like, yeah, it's I've talked to him too years ago. Lucas Gage is and what's the guy? The new guy, Myron Gaines, who I don't. He looks like he's an Indian. I don't know what he is, but he's like a, a white nationalist, which a lot of these non-whites are that are. I don't get it. There are more of them than you find white guys that are they're acting that way. Um, yeah, Brian said Tate basically held him as prisoner. I mean, there was awful comments he made. Jason Woodlock talked about that. But usually when he's talking about policy and stuff, he makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I can't get I don't like that kind of controlling stuff and super machismo. Um, envy Crockett, King of the West. I like that, Vince. Uh, Chris Buchan says the Russian spy Robert Hansen was a member of Opus Dei. I don't know. I don't know what the hell he is, but he's a man. You talk about it. He gives Nick Fuentes a run for his money with hating women. I saw him in some kind of good to see you, Hope and Despair, in some kind of debate the other day with some women. Man, it was something. Okay, Bert, let's see what they're saying over here. Ryan Bradley says Fuentes is a pud. Gapers. Let's see. So be it, Solitas. Oh, cool. Ryan Bradley said he found a copy of American Memory Hall at his local bookstore. Gifts and thank you very much. I appreciate it. I assume that was Barnes and Noble. I don't know what other bookstore it would be in. Let me know if you saw it in some other smaller bookstore. That'd be really cool. But that's good to hear. I know it's in some bookstores. Yeah, Bert, that's where that story of the guy. Yeah, and I just tweeted about that. And this guy again, I know nothing about him. I could be a horrible guy. I don't know, but he got 8 years in prison for his a racist rant, whatever the hell that was. That's I mean, the idea that you could that you could be, in prison at all for speech, and this is apparently years after the fact, but 8 years for anything. I don't care what you said, but I mean, that's just but this is, there's so many Americans that support that. I guess that we just have to face the fact that probably a majority of our countrymen do not believe in free speech, and that's a hard pill to swallow. Um, and what Vince is talking about Davy Crockett. Hey, I love that. King of the Wild Frontier. That was good. Buddy Ebsen is like it's I think fictitious. I don't know what his age was. I don't think that guy existed in real life. Um, Brian says Michael Walsh has a book about Opus Dei that I've not gotten around to reading it. Walsh is a former Jesuit. Yeah, again, I don't understand. I know the Jesuits are kind of mysterious. I know a lot of people. I've always thought that was a deflection away from people talking about Jews. They talk about Jesuits, and a lot of people mix them in together or say it's the Vatican. And yeah, the Vatican's corrupt and everything, but I don't. The Vatican owns a lot of real estate. I don't know what kind of power the Vatican has in terms of politics. Um, Chris said, "Did you see the court ruling that now it's illegal to burn the Zionist flag?" No, I haven't heard that. In America, I don't think it should be illegal to burn the American flag. I mean, again, this is political speech, and I'm sure to most politicians, it's more important that you don't burn the Israeli flag. And that's again, this is just people don't believe in free speech. They want to punish people for stupid stuff. It's just ridiculous. I don't care what you're doing. That racist rant that guy had, the burning some flag. That's you're not committing a violent crime. Those are the people that only think people that we need to control in our society. People that might hurt other people. Um, all the world's state says, "Do I have a Rumble or Odyssey channel?" Because those platforms don't play. Yeah, no, yeah, I know, and this we are on Rumble now. We're on the American Plug channel. I have a channel over there too. I think it's under Author Jeffries. So please, I need subscriptions there, and I do put some of my videos up there. Um, and who knows? Eventually, I may have to transfer them if YouTube gets rid of me entirely. Um, Brian Taylor's using the Bill Cooper tamp. Bill Cooper has a lot of fans, including Chris Graves, who hopefully is out there listening. The people are part of the Mystery Babylon, as he said. Kenny says, "I'm spitting fire." Okay. I usually try to. That's what I usually do. That's my default setting, I think. Yeah, that Chris, they say that, I don't even know, we hear so much about the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages and stuff, and I'm dubious about all history. I just am. And I've heard the stories about, the popes used to be married and popes were found dead in houses of prostitution. I don't know. How do you fact check that? I don't know, but I mean, is that just part of the anti-Catholicism thing? Because I mean, look, all Christianity was once Catholicism until Martin Luther tacked the note on the door famously, and started the Protestant movement. But mm, I just look at that as an attack on Christianity. Maybe it's true. I mean, I know organized religion is certainly corrupt. It's just as corrupt today as it was. But I don't know. Was that all going on? Maybe it was. I don't know. But again, the same people that are telling me that are telling me Oswald killed JFK and 19 crazed hijackers did 9/11. So I don't know. I have not heard of William T. Still, Brian. I'm not sure who that is. Um, Old Carter Goldsmith. Good to see you, brother. Thank you, brother. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Happy birthday wishes, Guard. Good to see. I'm sorry we're in competition with each other. It reminds me of when I was a little kid and Lost in Space was up against Batman. I had to make a decision. Who are you going? Don Jeffries or Goldsmith. It's tough. Fortunately, all these things are unlike those TV shows. Fortunately, everything is archived, so if you miss something, you can always come back and catch it. When Pua says Catholicism has nothing to do with Christianity. Well, look, I mean, again, I'm a Catholic, or half-assed Catholic. I'm a fallen Catholic, like all of us are. Typically, we go through we become full Catholics and we're confirmed, and then most of us don't go to mass much anymore. At least I did go to mass some, and I raised my kids Catholic, so they're full Catholic. And of course, they don't go to church. That's what Catholics do, and that's what most Jews do actually as well. But I understand that until Christianity, that was Catholicism for centuries. You can say it was wrong, but that's what Christianity was until the Protestant movement was born. And I understand that, I've had, it took me, it was until I was an adult that I realized the difference between Catholicism, which, yeah, we believe in works, we believe in good works. And I understand Protestants look down on that, and which is, they believe in faith. And of course, we have faith too, but I think works without faith without works are, that's my view. I think, it matters what you do here. Um, Brian says he did a documentary called The Money Masters. Interesting. Um, and there's Karen Carpenter. Good to see you. Okay. Good works will not save you. Well, again, that's I I like trying to do good. I just equate it with spirituality. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, alone. Yeah, you have to have faith too. But hope and despair. Good to see you. Let's see what's going on. Good job going back and forth between the two chats here. Um, torches and pitchforks. I think it should be legal to burn the American press. I don't think I would go that far, no matter who it was. Let's see here. Ryan said it was a used copy. Okay, so it must have been a used bookstore. Okay, interesting. Well, that's fine. Hopefully, he read it before he. And you see, you find my books are in libraries, so maybe you'll find them at a library book sale sometimes. I've had people do that. Um, Birdhouse Blue says, "Well, ever a guest on Art Bell? I came across one with Art and Gerald Celente back into the." No, I wasn't. I didn't hit the big time. Well, after Hidden History. Now, nobody was asking me to be a guest on their show before 2015. So that would have been great. I mean, I listened to Art Bell a few times, and I know most people think Coast to Coast was much better with him, and I'm not going to argue with him, but I've been on Coast to Coast many, many times since then, but that's long after Art Bell was there. Um, what else? It feels like quite inquiring minds want to. Yeah, that's basically what it is because I came on, unprepared, didn't have the guest. I wasn't even sure I was going to do a show, but certainly. So I love having your guys' questions and comments. Art was there again. It was perfect for that time of night. That's why Coast to Coast is so well because people want to hear about these subjects. Quentin Paz says no man is head of God's church. Yes, I understand that. Post Oh, Karen Carpenter. Yeah, Karen Carpenter. You and I, neither one of us got lucky because I share my birthday with Bill Clinton of all people, and you share your birthday with Lyndon Johnson. So I'm not sure which of us is luckier, but I did have a nice birthday, and I hope you have a good one next week too. Okay. Oh, Quentin Pooh, I appreciate you being here. You're obviously a fiery Protestant. You may have joined the Know Nothing Party back in the day. They had a party in the mid 1900s that Abraham Lincoln was friendly to behind the scenes. Let's put it that way. That was very anti-Catholic. Um, Head of the Church of Yeshua, followed by man. I just, look, and I know there's a lot of people out there. And I get this when I write about, you know, touch on God and Jesus and Substack, and there's so many of you that are so confident. And you have faith. That's the great thing. I think that's the important thing. I'm not as confident a lot of you are. I'm not sure that I know a lot of this stuff. Um, I just try to be good, and but a lot, I still have questions about some stuff. Chris Buchan doesn't like Art Bell. Okay, all right. Well, I don't know why that surprises me. Um, All the World's a Stage says, have me or Billy Ray seen the October 7th Vid's links that was posted in the comments on Rumble? I have not. I haven't. You mean that was when, I guess, when the dirty, rotten, sneaky terrorists were gliding in or whatever it was during a concert? I don't know. Let's see. Yes, no, I understand. And Quinn, I would say, look, it's so I don't, you know, I have problems with what evangelicals types. I think they read the Schofield Bible, which came along much later. I think they came up with a lot of stuff that wasn't in Christianity, certainly wasn't in Catholicism before. But if we didn't have the evangelical movement, we didn't have the non-denominational movement, whatever we want to call them, Christianity would be very rare in modern America. I know that the Catholics have lost a lot of people, and in terms of just like Methodists or Episcopalians or whatever, I get the sense that the attendance has dropped off considerably. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. So I think without the evangel that's what Christianity has become in America is the evangelical movement. They're certainly the only ones that have any power. And unfortunately, they're Zionist to the core. And if they weren't, I think we'd have a much better chance of reining in on foreign policy. Okay. Steve Cameron, good to see you, brother. Steve Cameron Productions. And Steve, I meant to say in that comment and I think you discovered it's wonderful that FBI. I was trying to find out because Jim DiEugenio published a footnote in I guess Destiny Betrayed or Reclaiming Parkland, one of his books about Ruth Paine. And I put it as a source in hidden history, and I regretted it because I had no other source other than his book about Ruth Paine asking about Lee Harvey Oswald in 1957. For those of you who don't know, that's very significant because Ruth Paine was the person that Marina Oswald would later be living with in a very odd relationship, Oswald's wife at the time of the assassination. And she supposedly got Oswald the book depository, had CIA connections to her sister and family and so forth. Was later with the Sandinistas, very, right in the middle of Lee Harvey Oswald, of course. So if somebody like this who didn't know Oswald is asking questions about him in 1957, very significant. But I couldn't find. In fact, I wrote to the guy who DiEugenio said, I can't remember his name. I had some crazy emails from that guy. He couldn't find it in his garage. He said it was like I think a Department of Navy memo. But you found it, brother. Great job. That's a great job. It spells it out there, and it's very significant. So look forward to Steve's book next year. He's going to have the book coming out. Does great work. But Steve says, wasn't Ernst Sundell, who was in prison during the hate speech because the judge said the truth is no defense, and then Sundell's lawyer got locked up for defending her client too well. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's what I say when people talk about it doesn't even matter. Even if I believed everything they said about the Holocaust, if I believed every word of it, it doesn't matter. No one should be in prison for saying it didn't happen or saying anything didn't happen. I mean, you can't. There's no other event in history that somebody can be in prison for. That's why we're hanging on by a thread here in the United States, because certainly people, especially the conservatives, the Republicans, would love to look at people who were saying that they don't want you criticizing Israel. So it's very. I mean, Ernst Sundell, for those you don't know, was a Canadian teacher, and he was prosecuted and sent to prison. And you had some brave people in the United States. I think it was Jim Trafficant, who was one of the last great Democrats who ended up they throw him out of Congress. I could be wrong. I think he defended him. I might have gotten mixed it up with Demjanjuk because I know Pat Buchanan defended John Demjanjuk because they tried to round up. But Zundel was a little more extreme because he was saying the Holocaust didn't happen, so nobody wanted to defend him. But I think Trafficant did, maybe not. Chris Buchan said Art Bell also hated Rhodes. Did he? I'll have to ask him about that. Let's see. It was very. I don't know. I don't remember enough. I remember when I was a blue collar worker working night shift one time that sometimes we'd have Art Bell on in the background. It was interesting because we talked a lot about UFOs and stuff, which I was very interested in that. Good to see you, Peter Seacosh. He has terrible reception, but he's probably on top of a roof somewhere working. So glad you could make it, brother. And thank you for all your great research. A lot of the stuff I'm talking about from American Vandal came courtesy of you. Um, Chris Buggin says, "You followed Jesus, you wouldn't be religious or go to church. Jesus taught that God is every." Well, that's one of the main. When I read after my mom died, I talked about this before. I read the entire. I wanted to read the entire Bible. I tried to read the Old Testament. I'm sorry, I just couldn't. It's kind of scary. The God in the Old Testament is very scary, and so the New Testament made me feel much better. I read that, enjoyed it, got a lot out of it, and that's one of the main things I got is that it shows the most many Christians make a pretense of being being religious in public and that sort of thing. And Jesus is basically saying that yeah, you pray alone when no one can see you. And I think that's because it's important. What do we do when no one can see us? Do we how do we act then? And I fail at that sometimes too. But I think that's the important thing. Quinn Poe, you can disagree with my views all you want. First of all, I'm a free speech purist, and hell, you're turning into my podcast, so I have to love you for doing that. So believe what you want, brother. You could be right. I don't know. Again, I don't have all the answers. I what I do know is there is God. There's no question. The creation proves a creator. So my argument would be with the atheists or even the agnostics, but especially the atheists, because to be sure that there's no God is doing the same thing you're accusing others of doing, of believing in something without proof. So how are you disbelieving in something without proof? That's just ridiculous. And there's Don Lambert. Good to see you. Yes, he was Quinn Poe. He was answering. He called out the Pharisees? Absolutely, and that's why a lot of people talk about when they call him a rabbi and he was Jewish, but he sure condemned Jews a lot for somebody that was, just I'm just saying, he really did. Most all of his vitriol was directed at the Pharisees, the Jewish leaders. I mean, he called them children of the devil. Said you're like your father, the devil, and you're the first and greatest liar of them all. That's a pretty rough thing to say. Good to see you, Ray Contreras. People are rolling in now. Yeah, it's be probably true. If Jesus returned tomorrow, all the religions, probably Christians, would be pushing and shoving to crucify him first. Exactly, especially if he called them out. Charles Schulten, good to see you. That's one of the things that has still have not been released. Is at least some of Oswald's tax returns have not been. I think Ruth Payne's tax returns are still classified too. And that ought to tell you something. Thank you, Quinn. I appreciate that. I did not know JFK was killed on the same day as Jacques de Molay. That's the big Freemason guy, right? Brian, well, I did not know that. Is Jacques which one is the one? Is Jacques de Molay the one that's in search of his penis or something? Isn't it? What do I say? I think I've heard in some of the conspiracy books. I don't understand it, but a lot of these writers thought it was significant. Let me see. Chris Buchan says Buddhists don't forget, but I don't know what Buddhists believe either. I don't know. Yes, that is Michael Levy. Thanks, Steve Cameron. Exactly. That's who found the original file. Yes, ONI. And I had some curious emails with that guy. He was entertaining, I'll give you that. But good for you, man. That was a big find because that's huge. And again, people, may not realize that, who is Ruth Payne. Ruth Payne's still alive, first of all, which is amazing that, that she's, really in the center of, I believe at the ground level, she was involved with being a handler of Oswald or setting him up or something. Something strange there. And she's still alive and going pretty well. So if they had an investigation, a real investigation, if my lovely Luna over there, Anna Polina Luna, if she ever really had, she'd be the first witness I'd call because she's not the only one left, I think. Well, I think you'll still have, is it Howard Willens, I believe, who was the head counsel for the, or second head counsel or something for the Warren Commission is still alive. So but you could probably call him as well. Okay. Yes, there was a lot of there was a King Kill 33 used to be on the internet. I'm sure you guys have seen it. Talk about all the Masonic symbolism of the JFK assassination. Chris Bucket says, yeah, and that's, and that's the problem I have with the faith only thing is that I've seen so many of these born againer types that don't walk the walk. They don't lead a holy life. Not that, I'm not saying I or anybody necessarily we lead a holy life at all, but I see them do kind of nasty things and do bad things. And but they're saved. And I don't understand that. I think it's very hypocritical. Uh, and Vince Agnelli's taking Mr. John Richardson's apricot seeds. Good job. Trust no one. 1754 says, what are my thoughts on aliens? I used to looking for them all the time. My eyes were peeled to the sky as a young man. I was, a lot of times when I was high, I would be looking up at the sky, hoping to see, desperately to see a UFO. UFOs were my second main areas of interest beyond JFK assassination was number one. And I naturally, like everyone else, thought they were aliens. I thought there was a big cover up, and there is a cover up. But it wasn't until I read the books of John Keel, who wrote the Mothman prophecies, and I think that's his least important book. And I hope he got some money on it because he didn't do that well. I would love to have had him on the show. He's a really eccentric character. You look him up. David Letterman had him on his show, so David Letterman must have been interested in some of that stuff to even know who John Keel was. But he wrote a book called The Eighth Power, which is wonderful, strange creatures from time and space, Our Haunted Planet. Great stuff. And he was different from most UFO researchers in that he did not believe in the extraterrestrial theory. He thought that these were practical jokers. They might have come from another dimension. He kind of even hinted that maybe there was some kind of government stuff at work. I think that's more like it because the alien theory makes no sense because they can figure out who's in charge. They wouldn't constantly go visit a Brazilian farmer, which is what they did constantly. And but clearly there was a phenomenon. It was real. And they also did nonsensical things. Like my favorite was the one I think it was I don't know it was in Brazil or somewhere else, but they showed up a lot in Brazil. But this UFO landed in a farmer's backyard, and he went out to see what was going on. And but perfectly humanoids they call them, which are humans. They're just humans, but they're I guess pretending to be aliens. They came out and just handed him a plate of pancakes. That's, I mean, someone would make a story like that up, but that kind of nonsensical stuff happened a lot in contactee cases. I have a book called The Humanoids, which is very good describing. There's another one that was a case in Kentucky where a family got in almost like a hillbilly feud with aliens, where they were like bouncing slowly and they were shooting them. It was a bunch of gunfire. It was ridiculous, but very some very interesting cases out there. Let's see here. Yeah, Malay language. I may be getting them mixed up. I thought that was the guy. Yes, the Osiris legend, Brian. Yes. Yeah, I think that's what I've heard, that the Osiris legend is that Demolay's penis is missing. And that's what they're searching for. Go figure. That's what I've heard. I don't know. Charles Schultz says, do you think those who broke into the Watergate wanted the Kennedy files? I don't think so. I think Watergate was really almost 100% contrived. There were some connections. E. Howard Hunt was probably he was seen on Chappaquiddick Island. I think they set Ted Kennedy up. I think he was probably involved in that, and he was probably in Dealey Plaza. But I think I think that was Nixon's figurative assassination. They wanted to get Nixon out of office for whatever reason. Well, we're talking about UFOs and aliens now, Chris. He said he's had experience all his life with that. Helen Rundell says all the Bible is written for us, but not all is written to us. Well, I mean, how much? Well, we got to remember when I talk about God or Jesus or something, this is a concept. Can we really understand it, comprehend it? I can't. That's why I try to tell people that are atheists or nuts. First of all, this entire existence is impossible. How did this come about? How did any of this? This is fantastic. Not because some big ball, banged. And there was in the beginning there was a big ball. Who created? People always say, well, "Who created God? Who created the big ball that you idiots believe in? Where did the ball come from that's burst forward into the Big Bang theory? Who created the primordial ooze and all these other nonsensical words you use to try to intimidate people? And the fish came out of the how did the fish? What did some fish come out of the ocean? And then you have the monkeys. Okay, we evolved from apes, and why do we still have apes? I mean, there's so many questions about it. Modern science is ridiculous. Good to see you, Vince. Yeah, Chris says all the ancient. Well, they do, and but again, I question how much of that history is wrong. I read Chariots of the Gods, and I think Von Daniken's still alive. I tried to get in touch with him years ago. He's got to be really old, but um, very famous, and he was the first one to focus on all the drawings and so forth in the caves that appear to show aliens and look like UFOs, and they do. And certainly the Nazca lines in Peru, if you've seen them, they're not visible unless you're up in the air from a so clearly, if those things are legitimate, they're as old as they say they are, then they had some kind of power of flight because you wouldn't be able to draw them like that, if you couldn't see them. So, I think the Great Pyramid and all that. I studied all this stuff, and I was very interested in it, but I'm now to the point where it's not I don't know if it's almost a Tartaria type of thing. I don't know how much of history I trust. I know they lie to us about everything. So if I'm a firmly a young Earth guy. I do not believe in the billions of I don't think there's any way they can age things like that. But I've seen the anomalies. I've seen the ancient battery they supposedly found, and I've seen the little thing that looked like an airplane that was, supposedly millions of years old. So there's obviously a lot of questions there. Don Lambert says her family's experiencing alien abduction phenomena. Yes, there's something there, obviously. I don't know what. Chris Bucket says, no, absolutely. Ted was not in the car, Chris. You guys read my work on Chappaquiddick there. Ted Kennedy was not in the car. Absolutely set up. Andy, good to see you. Andy says Dean Malay was arrested on Friday the 13th. That's why it's considered. I didn't know that. I always thought it was because it was 13 steps to the gallows. I didn't hear that. Okay. Evolution Therapy in Crisis is a good book to read. And more and more people. See, I couldn't have felt comfortable saying this, but now more and more people are talking. Evolution is bullshit, and I think a lot of people, and especially because if you're anti-eugenicist, you realize how it's tied into that. Eugenicist thought is directly it would be impossible without evolution because evolution came up with the survival of the fittest. What does that mean? That means some of us aren't fit, so maybe we shouldn't be here. You're not fit enough to be here. Good to see you, GBGN. One they lie about everything. How do you know trust any? You're right. I don't, and that's why I don't. You have people when the people that say everything is fake, and I think a lot of it was. But I have to assume that most of this stuff is real because I'm writing about it. Because if it's all fake, then and Ryan Bradley over here is talking about about the phallus of Osiris. It's Osiris thing. It's a missing penis. I remember that. And I thought it was tied to Jacques de Molay, but I don't pretend to know. I've read so many of these things over the years in conspiracy books, and um, Opossum King said she was just to get out of jail. That's a good way to describe it, I guess. It's a label used to describe any stifle any communication. Exactly. And that's why, I think you have to be, that's why I try to be polite. I don't like calling names, and that's what too many people do. I think a mistake that Nick Fuentes, and lots of other people. There's no reason to be throwing the N word around, and just saying disparaging things about anybody. You can make your point without doing that. Um, Brian Taylor says the Big Bang in simple terms that nothing exploded and everything was created, and they think this is more logical than God creating everything. It's just And I just they love to ridicule your imaginary magician in the sky, and they have all kinds of ways of describing God. But nobody can ridicule their the Big Bang Theory. Nobody can ridicule, the theory of relativity. Read what Nikola Tesla, talked about Einstein. Einstein was, was not very bright. I think that he never learned how to tie his shoes. I think the world's greatest geniuses figure that out. But, I've never understood the theory of relativity. Of course, what am I? I'm a community college dropout, but Nikola Tesla, who was brilliant, didn't understand it either, and he criticized it. It's a bunch of BS, and all modern science is based on it. Um, Chris Buggin says the irony is that the loony left, the Jews who wrote all this, created a situation where only the top 2% of men get love. Is it that bad? 2%? Oh, I don't know. Well, it's painful, and that's why my sympathy goes with these guys because it's terrible that's the situation where you're creating a bunch of these incels. Piper Fogel, good to see you here. Uh, So people are jumping in late here. So we'll go for a little while. I'm probably still gonna, like I said, the the clever thing I used to say when I was a lovable loser blue collar worker. Gosh, I came in late, but I'll make up for it by leaving early. That was one of our lines we had back then. Um, okay, all the world state says check when you have time. Please check the link comment just left on Rumble to watch. Okay, did you leave it under your name, or is it or you got another name over on Rumble? I don't see. I don't see a link to anything over there. I'm not sure what you're talking about. All the world would be happy to check out the video. But so we're just kind of all over the place. And I'm just kind of responding to you guys. And for those of you that came late, I had a guest cancel at the last minute again, which happens way too much. And comments. Oh, and comments. Okay. Over there. Is there comments over Rumble? Where the hell are the comments? Oh, I see what you. Oh, at the bottom. Okay. I don't see a comment there though. Let me refresh it. Maybe it's not showing up there yet. Okay, I see it. Got you, brother. Okay, I see your comment there. Okay. But so just making sure this thing doesn't play over here. I'm seeing the ads on our Rumble channel. We have the same YouTube. It's amazing how many ads they have now. It's really because I watch a lot of these podcasts on YouTube, and within the last few months, they have really, really ramped up their ads on everything, even things like fantasy football and obviously all the political stuff. It's so many more, and you can't get away from it. And in most cases, I'm saying these are more advertisements than you see on television. It's ridiculous. Um, Hyperfocal, it's too bad you guess. Yeah, and it happens a lot. I need people. What I need. I need people. I need to get big enough to have people to handle these things for me. But I um I want to my biggest following by far is on Substack now. It's the only place I'm being allowed to grow much. And so there's a way to go live there. I've got to do that. I'm just in such a rut where I don't try new things. So I need to go live there, try it out, see how many of it's like I've got like God, what do I got now? Almost 12,000 subscribers, I think, over there. So they should have a pretty big audience. Hopefully, I don't know how many of them would watch, but um, I need to do that, and also beyond that, figure out maybe how to simulcast this show on there. But this show has so many glitches. That's it's and a lot of the times it's trying to get the guests, and I understand. It's yeah, so Rumble, yeah, that's why I don't know why I can't believe Rumble has the ads too. That's why what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's YouTube. It's Rumble, so they got the ads now too. It's too much. Yeah, that's the beauty of not watching television. You don't have to watch all those commercials, but you do on YouTube now. Um, Let's see what we got. Birdhouse Booth loves the fact I'm spit. That's what I'm doing is spitballing. That's for sure. Um, Dustin said Einstein wore Dustin Helm wore Velcro shoes. Well, he supposedly couldn't tie his shoes, and I don't know. I just find that odd. But again, just everything they make people out to be. I mean, look how heroic Einstein is considered. Einstein's basically you say he's an Einstein. That's basically it's become like Xeroxing something, making a copy, become some synonym for genius. Oh, what are you, an Einstein? And I don't know. Was he one? I don't know. Maybe he wasn't, or what he was. Maybe the theory is just so complex. But I mean, energy equals matter times the speed of light square. I think that's what the theory wrote. But that makes sense. Again, I have a limited intellect, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe somebody can explain. Charles Schulten said the missing Nixon tapes could have been him having threatened to expose the Kennedy cover up or this. Yeah, he alluded to it. Nixon alluded to it. He talked, every time he talked about the Bay of Pigs thing, that was code for JFK assassination. So he knew about it. He obviously knew. He supposedly made the comment about LBJ where he said, "I wanted to be president, but not bad enough to kill for it." That was his line. And LBJ did want to be president. Again, LBJ wasn't the director of the conspiracy because these things happen at a higher level, but he was definitely in on it. And he definitely approved. He was so happy he couldn't contain himself. Brian Taylor says, well, the Dave McGowan article actually was from years ago, but I have another Substack that I kind of put a best on. I put like my old articles on there because I couldn't delete it, and I figured, well, and most people seem to like that, so I I just put stuff in. So I thought a lot of people that like me that like Dave McGowan. His brother thinks it was suspicious. Craig, I've had Craig on my show way back in the day. Craig McGowan, Chris Graves has been very friendly with him too. And he, it was so fast. It happened so fast. And I think there was a mysterious woman that was hanging around or something. And Chris knows more about that than I do. But certainly I'm suspicious. And then he dies on November 22nd of all days. I mean, I don't know what that's kind of a cosmic coincidence. Um, Chris Buchan says, do I think Nixon and JFK were genuinely friendly? I don't know if they were arch enemies, but I think Nixon was jealous of him. And I think that JFK, who was a genuinely nice guy, but I think he didn't think a whole lot of Nixon because he knew Nixon was envious and didn't have a lot of class. And but they had Chris Matthews, that idiot. He supposedly wrote a book trying to claim that they were buddies, and I don't think that's true at all. Don Lambert says, "How's Chris doing?" Haven't heard that much from him. I hope he's doing okay. We're gonna have the sale of that trailer, and I don't know what the Peter Seacosh has been talking to him more. I don't know if he knows more than I. Chris Graves is out there. Normally I look to see him in the chat, and he's here sometimes and here not, but hopefully he's doing well. I don't, just Chris exemplifies what I call the other side of America, the other half of America, and there's lots of people out there suffering. And it's just some of the stories you hear are just incredible. Brian tells us, what was he researching at the time? Well, he was always researching something. He was in the middle of his Lincoln series, and his Lincoln assassination stuff was fascinating, especially somebody like me that's been studying it a long time. But he seemed to be, I don't know, but he seemed to be going in the direction of saying that the Lincoln assassination was a psyop that didn't happen. And he was making a convincing case. So, again, you can go to the Center for Informed America. It's still out there. Search under that. And Days of Wagging the Moon Doggy. If you have any notion that we actually went to the moon, read Wagging the Moon Doggy. It'll remove any doubts, guaranteed. Helen Rendell said, cannot find post-Reconstruction historian and de jure Secretary of State for North Carolina would make an excellent guest. I'm not sure, Helen, what you could not find post-Reconstruction historian and de jure Secretary of State for North Carolina would make an who's that person? Oh, John Ainsworth. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that sounds interesting. Karen says, "Do you think the bloodline, Karen Carpenter, the families like the Kennedys are involved in international ritual abuse like him?" I hope not. I don't know, but they seem to be different because they were. He was the first Catholic, and he was Irish Catholic, pure Irish, and the ancestors came from Ireland in the late 1800s, mid to late 1800s. So that made him different from the blue bloods that mostly occupied the White House. So I don't think they were, but I don't know. I think he wasn't he too JFK himself was too busy having sex with every movie star. We're supposed to believe that, while also facing constant danger of death everywhere. He's on death's doorstep, but having nonstop sex. I mean, hell of a guy, incredible. Um, yes, Dave McGowan was great, and I to my great delight, I've been compared with him many times. A lot of people couple us in there, and so I'm very honored by that. Denver Attaway says, "My high school history teacher proclaimed the last real president of the USA was Richard Nixon." Maybe so. And JFK, I think, is the last one who thought it, but maybe Nixon thought he was in charge too. Maybe that's why he's trying to do the same thing as well. But I remember, again, you were talking about when I was a teenager, I was coming of age politically. I was a far left-wing Democrat. I loved the Kennedys. I hated Nixon, was a dirty word in our household. I thought he was the ultimate evil guy. So for me to be ever defending him is odd. But, I just think that it is what it is. And I was fortunate to establish a long distance relationship with Len Kolodny for the last few years before he passed away a few years ago. But we had several nice phone conversations and emails. And Len wrote the book Silent Coup. Whereas he told me he actually didn't write. He said, "I didn't know a word of it, but his name is on it." But it was a very popular book back in the day. And I like to compare that book to Hidden History because I think he sold 500,000 copies or 750, whatever. It made him wealthy. But that was, like, when that, I think it was in the 80s or late 80s when he sold it. But if my book Hidden History had been published at that time, I think it would have probably sold about that many copies, maybe. Um, and I would have been wealthy. But Len was a really nice guy, very helpful. A Baltimore accent. Boy, did he have a Maryland accent. But I used to enjoy talking to him on the phone. It was sad to hear he passed away, but he he was one of the people who was helpful to me. And there are some that aren't. Some of them aren't. Some of them are. Oh, I didn't realize S.D. Patrick had Kolodny. Did he have Monica? S.D. Of course, S.D. Patrick. People know my history. I think I still hold the record for the most appearances on Midnight Rider News. And of course, he published my book. I'm not even going to say what it is, but about this certain subject, masking the truth. And it was so I didn't know. And ST has kind of suspended that show, I think now. Um, and it's a shame because he does a good job. He's different than most people. He's very thorough. Good friend. Brian Taylor says you had to recommend one book on conspiracy history and stuff. You mean besides my own? There's so many books on it. But, you almost have to be like. And that's why I think Hidden History is so valuable because it does cover a lot of stuff. And it's more modern than most of the classic works. I mean, you go back to depends on what and my book is in the middle. My stuff is not right wing. Most of the great conspiracy books are right wing books. You go back to Pawns in the Game and Red Fog Over America, which were written by William Guy Carr, Commander William Guy Carr out of Canada. Great stuff exposing communism. And then you have Gary Allen's classic None Dare Call a Conspiracy, which is a kind of a John Birch Society view, but very, very valuable. I don't know, one book, again, I think, my books are as good as any, especially when you talk about the historical stuff. So I would think my Hidden History books, American Memory Hole is the latest one of those. Don't want to toot my own horn, but I don't know anybody that covers it the way I do. Chris Buckin says, "Do I ever go into X spaces?" I used to. A few years back, and when I first started going in there, I was getting pretty good response. But then I don't know what started happening. Suddenly I started getting fewer and fewer people, and I don't know. I can only assume it was part of my shadow ban. That was before Elon bought Twitter, and, late I just haven't, done it. I've been in a few. There's a couple people in Australia that are, very supportive of me that do those spaces, and they sometimes invite me on, so I probably should do that more, but again, I need somebody. I just you know, it's humiliating to get on there and have 20 people or something like that, and that's what happens sometimes. Um, Karen Carpenter, the creature of good and Jekyll, absolutely, especially the Federal Reserve. That's Edward G. Griffin, who of course is still alive at 97 years old and has been a guest on this show a couple times. So, um, Brian says it. Well, he says read Hidden History. Hidden History was my first, but the prequel to that is Crimes and Cover-ups in American Politics, 1776, 1963, with the forward by the great Ron Paul, who probably regrets he wrote that. Maybe I don't know, because I tried to get him to write the forward to American Memory Hall, and I never heard back. And he says, I don't want my name associated with this nut. Um, Thank you, Birdhouse Blue. You know, I try to do best, but without a publicity machine, it's hard to do. And you've been very supportive of me. I appreciate that. But I think that we so much of this is luck. And I look at a guy like Jim Douglas who wrote JFK and the Unspeakable, and he was selling fewer copies than Hidden History at the time, but whatever reason, Oliver Stone picked up the book and held it up on Bill Maher's show, and it went through the roof. And now that doesn't always work, because I know a guy that was on Oprah's book club, and he didn't sell any books even after being on Oprah, which is hard to believe. But typically, if you have the right celebrity who holds your book up, it's going to start selling. So that's what I dream of, having somebody. That's why I gave Tulsi Gabbard a copy of Survival of the Richest when I was at her campaign event. Had the picture taken of together, and yeah, the hope was that, one of these people will read the book and talk about it and hold it up on the right show in the world of God. Because again, as I alluded to earlier, most people are followers. They just are. Most people are followers, and they just if they think something's popular, like all the nice things you guys say about me, um, a lot of these people would say the same thing. Maybe if they got to know me, but they have to get to know me the right way. So somebody has to recommend them. Oh, okay. I heard, Tucker talking about them, whatever. Maybe yeah, okay, that guy sounds good. Nothing's changed, but again, it's their condition. It's followers. The same thing. If you go to Amazon and you see a book that has, thousands of reviews or ratings, oh wow, that must be good. That's how they think. They're followers. They look at that stuff. Chris Buchan says, yes, I have. I met Sean Stone in DC a couple times. I was on his show. Um, I've never been able to get through to Oliver Stone. And I asked him a couple times about his dad, and he's very polite. He's a very nice guy, but he kind of I could tell he has a routine now when people ask him about his dad. 'Cause I'm sure he's had people ask him a lot. Hey, can you tell your dad about this? And he seems very hard to get a hold of. I don't know. He's got my books. I can tell you that, because I sent him an autographed copy of the Unreals and I think Hidden History. He has them. So I'm sure he has so many books he hasn't read it, but I have to think if he liked JFK and the Unspeakable that he'd love mine, but I don't know. Who knows if he'll ever get around to do that. Anyhow, so we're winding down here because I gotta knock off early, like I said, because I need to scrounge up something to eat here before I get ready for to Nature Boy at 8 p.m. And there's a link over in the Rumble chat for those of you who are interested in that. Charles Schultz, do I ever read Dean Henderson and his take on the city of London being behind this? Yeah, Dean is a guest on. I think I had Dean on my show once a long time ago. I think, but Dean is a guest on Rents. I think he's a regular on Rents still. Yeah, I know he does good work. Certainly, I don't know that much about him, but I know he's kind of in my realm. Good to see you, Ron Helton. I never check a bestseller. I pick a book based on its title, read a few. Well, the fact you're listening to my podcast shows you probably tend to go against the grain. But most people that's just the way they are. And I wish they weren't. Believe me, I'd sell a lot more books. if they weren't, but, it's the people are followers. That's just, it's, the way it is, and, but at any rate, so we're getting winding down here, so again, I appreciate everybody, and I'm sorry, I apologize for coming in. We ended up having some good numbers here for starting so late, and, good to see most of you in the chat. And, I hope they will try to do it. I don't know about next week. I may not be able to do it next week. I have something going on Friday. We'll see. But, beyond that, I'm setting up guests beyond that. And, if you don't follow me on Substack, if you haven't followed me on Substack, please do so. That's the only place I'm not being shadow banned. It's the only place I'm being allowed to grow. It's Donald Jeffries at Substack.com. Same name as this show. I protest. And, if you do that, that would be great. And, I'll make announcements there because I'm gonna be, I have to start trying out the going live on Substack thing. I know Naomi Wolf does it all the time. It seems to work for her, so, see if I can get that going and, try to, utilize that because I think I'll have a bigger audience, and I hope you people are part of that. I hope you go over there too because I appreciate every one of you over here. Deborah Wheeler, there you are. I was mentioning when I first came on, Deborah, I was very late, and when I came in, there were no comments, and I always look seeing you at the top saying, asking me to give Riley big hugs. David Duke, we'll see. I don't know. David Duke, I think I don't know if he's up to being on shows now. I'm not sure. I have to check it. Yeah, Chris. I don't have that much of a life, Chris, but we do have to eat. Thank you, sir. Steve Cameron says, I don't look a day older than yesterday. I appreciate that, Steve. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes. Yes, you do have to. We have grass Nazis, and you had to take care of your lawn. Yeah, that's the drawback of living in non-diverse neighborhoods. Let's say middle class neighborhoods. People like their lawns to look nice. So you got to have yours look nice too. No slackers there. Yes, Brian, you can go live with, and I'm sure it's easy. I'm a procrastinator. It's amazing I write as much as I write because I really do procrastinate on things, and so I need to do that. Once I do, I'm sure I won't look back. I'll keep doing it. But and let's talk about the video. Hopefully, it looks like my mic is working good now, so that's good. Oh, Deborah Willis. Yeah, it was late. Deborah, I explained it that the guest canceled and we had trouble with the link. So I'm glad it came on. That was good. And I will try to give hugs to Riley. So that's great. Let me see. Did I miss anything else over here? Thanks so much, Birdhouse Blues and everyone else over in Rumble. Thanks everyone here in YouTube. So anyhow, we'll talk to you probably next week, if not the week after that at the same time. So thanks everybody for listening to I Protest. Take care.